Hello, you're listening to the Witness History podcast from the BBC World Service. I'm Ashley Byrne, and today I'm taking you back to the mid-1990s and to an invention that made a small but important difference to millions of lives around the world. I've been talking to Ron Hamilton about the birth of the Daily Disposable Contact Lens.
Here's something that contact lens wearers like me have only dreamt of. Throw away those expensive cleaning solutions. In fact, throw away your lenses at the end of the day.
In 1993, Ron Hamilton invented a process for creating contact lenses so cheaply they could be worn just once and then thrown away.
We got to the point where, gee whiz, you can make these things, and by making them in that way, you cut out that operation and that operation and that operation, and we've got a lens, when I did my costings, that are going to change the market.
This is a story of a seemingly simple innovation that benefited millions, of a fortuitous encounter with the BBC World Service, and an intrepid entrepreneur taking on giant healthcare companies.
The biggest contact lens manufacturer in the world, they went away and we never heard from them. First of all, I'm not an optician, I'm an engineer. I didn't realise we were frightening them.
Ron Hamilton had been working as an engineer for 20 years and was overseeing the production of washing machines, among other things, when out of the blue, a global contact lens producer asked him to become their vice president of manufacturing, based in Hampshire in England. It didn't take Ron long in the new job to begin to wonder about the products being made.
I remember, for example, people coming up to me and saying, the lens I've got in my eye today has got a chunk missing, but it costs me so much, I have to keep wearing it.
Soft contact lenses had been available since the 1970s, but the high cost meant that they were designed to be worn for weeks, months, or even a year. As well as the cost of replacing them if they were damaged, there was the risk of lenses becoming dirty and picking up infections. And so users also had to buy a complicated set of cleaning chemicals.
It is not possible to effectively clean a soft lens because it's a matrix. It's mostly water. So you can put them through various chemicals, but you never really get them sterile.
Ron thought the answer to these problems lay in making major changes to the manufacturing process to dramatically reduce the cost.
I went to the main board and said, I think there's ways whereby we could make lenses and you wouldn't need to clean them. They more or less told me to keep quiet because a lot of money was made from selling cleaning solutions. And it was pretty clear at that stage I was going to have to just start literally on my own.
Ron gave up his well-paid job and his access to multi-million-dollar research facilities and relocated to a garage in the back garden of his home in Hampshire, England, along with a former colleague and now business partner, Bill Seddon.
My engineering background was very useful to me. I put a moulding machine in, I put ovens in, I put various measuring equipment in, and I spent morning till evening developing a new manufacturing process and costing it. This is not easy. This process is not easy. And you have to have intense conviction to overcome the difficulties that you know are going to emerge.
What kept Ron going was the knowledge that the existing contact lens manufacturing process was fundamentally flawed.
They make them badly, inspect them 10 times, and find the good ones. If we could make a process where they were precision moulded and every lens would be identical to its neighbour, we would only need to inspect a small sample, and that would cut the inspection costs. If the moulds we made were made in high precision moulding machines, that would cut the cost down because we would have great repeatability. So putting all of that together, and there are many other stages in the process, I was sitting literally by the fire one night with my wife doing a calculation and said to her, I've made a mistake.
Ron had come up with a cost for producing contact lenses that seemed to be too low to be true. It was late and he thought he must have made a mistake and would fix it in the morning.
In the morning, I cross-checked the assumptions I was making and came to the conclusion that it was possible to make a perfectly good, high-precision contact lens for a few pence. Whereas at that time, a lens of a similar quality doing the similar job was £50.
Eventually, in 1993, came the day when Ron managed to produce his first contact lens in his back garden.
I had made the moulds, I had cured the monomer, I'd taken them out of the oven and hydrated them, and hey, this actually looks like a contact lens. I can remember that. This actually looks like a contact lens. It probably was a pretty rubbish contact lens, actually, But I can still see that moment.
Making a lens in your garden is one thing. Being able to replicate the process at a large enough scale to bring down the cost of the lenses is another. What Ron needed now was enough financial backing to set up a factory.
One of the major manufacturing companies at the time heard about us, sent the vice president of manufacturing for contact lenses to see my little laboratory, and at the end of it he said, "You might have something here, but I can't go back to my research team, which is 140 people, and tell them that a couple of guys working in the back garden have got anything to offer us."
Then one day when he was working at home, the phone rang. It was the BBC World Service, asking if he would bring his prototypes along and talk about his idea on air.
Well, let's have a look at
Yes.
some of these lenses now. They come in this little dish, which reminds me a bit of the individual portion butter containers you get in
Right.
canteens. And you
Yes.
can just peel off the top of that there.
Yes.
And inside we can see some saline solution.
Right.
And this lens, which looks just like the ones I use.
By chance, Ron's radio appearance was heard by someone who worked at Boots, the biggest chain of chemists and opticians in Britain. They got in touch with Ron and said,
"We're very interested in this idea. If you can make it happen, it will change the market." They gave me a £2.5 million supply agreement, and I started to scale up the manufacture of the world's first daily disposable contact lenses in 1993.
It took Ron another 3 years to develop the factory process he needed to produce contact lenses, but by 1996 they were ready to be sold.
They went out with Boots daily disposable contact lenses and placed orders in the hundreds of thousands, eventually becoming the millions.
Sales rocketed as wearers embraced them as cool and hassle-free.
I just wear them once and throw them away.
Very soon, Ron was able to sell his company to one of the major contact lens manufacturers. 5 years later, though, he was back with a new business and a plan to use the internet to sell his lenses directly to consumers all over the world.
We're now standing next to one of the moulding machines. The moulds are put into pairs, and those pairs, when they go together and lens material is put inside, will form the actual contact lens.
Ron's invention of the daily disposable contact lens has made a small but important difference in millions of people's lives around the world. But Ron doesn't dwell on his successes.
What I think more about it is we really need to find ways of making this available to people where there is no high street optician. There are many people who took great exception to me selling a contact lens to somebody, and I'm not an optician. Only opticians should be able to do that, and it's not necessary. It was at one time when the lenses were rubbish, but it's a commodity. It's a very simple device to improve your vision, and you don't need to know a complicated chemistry kit to wash them.
Although daily disposable contact lenses might not seem the most environmentally friendly product, many companies are now moving towards fully biodegradable materials and fully recyclable packaging. Today, there are more than 500 million daily disposable contact lenses sold each year in the UK alone, and each year more and more people around the world adopt them.
From the very nervous meeting with BBC World Service, we had gone from "this might work, but I'm very confident that it will, I'm an engineer," to "this has worked."
Ron Hamilton, inventor of the daily disposable contact lens, was speaking to me, Ashley Byrne, for this edition of Witness History. It was a Made in Manchester production for the BBC World Service. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, why not try something else from the BBC World Service?